Dora is warmed up and her vocal cords are raring to go, and we want to hear from her more. We have the quorum. I think we should get started, Bhavya. Why don't you kick us off quickly?
Sure. Yes. This is the age of AI, from simplifying travel plans and perfecting recipes and assisting with everyday tasks. AI offers instant and accurate support. We want this level of efficiency in our workplace as well, where you can request a complex report and generate it within minutes, freeing up valuable time and resource for more strategic activities. This is the promise of AI, streamlining processes, enhancing productivity, and enabling smarter decision making. And organizations often expresses a desire to harness the power of Gen AI. Yet, their data fundamentals are not that aligned. It is not a one-step process. It's a journey that requires a robust data infrastructure, consistent data quality, and a comprehensive strategy. Therefore, it is imperative to understand that achieving this alignment is crucial for the effective implementation of AI. To address this gap only, we are here with another Bodhi session on future-proofing your data strategy for the AI era. We are fortunate to have Dora with us to share her expertise and experiences. Quick introduction. Dora is a Senior Director of Data and Analytics at Stryker, with an industry-recognized business data and technology thought leader with deep domain expertise in data and analytics, enterprise architecture, and digital transformation. We are delighted to have you here with us today, Dora.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm grateful, and I couldn't be happier to be here. Actually, have this conversation with the team. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Dora, for taking time.
To facilitate today's conversation, we have Siddharth Pudar and Ankita Agrawal with us. Sid is the Senior Vice President, Industry Head, Manufacturing and CPG at Polestar. Sid carries a deep domain experience, about 2 decades in the technology and process consulting world. And Ankita is the data analytics lead with over 11 years of dynamic experience, specializing in and orchestrating successful data management and analytics initiatives. I would also like to extend my gratitude to the audience for joining today. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat box. We can address them at the end of the session. And now I'll pass on to you, Ankita, for the session.
Okay. Thank you for the introduction, Bhavya. And it's very exciting to be a part of this discussion on, how AI is transforming our workplaces. And we know that AI can simplify our lives by, helping us in problem solving and our day-to-day task, and even making our life better and making our businesses better in better decision making. So that's how we have you, Dora, to share your experience and expertise on few key areas where we want to talk about today, and wherein so we will talk about the data having the robust data platform, and which is the key pillar for these AI solutions to work effectively in our organizations and the companies today. So in your over past 3 decades of experience, Dora, you have seen multiple shifts, multiple changes, from very old days of internet to the machine learning to Gen AI coming now into picture. You have seen various jumps, various stages and evolution of data, right? So what do you think about these changes, and what is the biggest shift and how it has helped the organizations today?
Thank you for the question, Ankita. You're absolutely right. 3 decades, that's a long time. So it has been about 30 years, and I've been 30 years always in IT, but always kind of like leading with a business mindset, right? And you hit it. There's been a lot of change. Out of my 30 years, I've always done data. I've done software development as well. I mean, I started as a COBOL mainframe programmer. Again, tech and data and AI. I've always done data. But out of my 30 years, about 20 of them, I've also done enterprise architecture. And I'm saying that just to highlight the fact that just by being in those types of roles, And my roles have always been also from like a global shared function, so not a division. So I get to see a lot. I've seen a lot of different technologies. I've seen a lot of change, different technologies, different platforms coming and going. So the point is, to your point, change. It's like perpetual. So if there's anything that I want to say here is like, might as well embrace it, because I know there's a lot of people that sometimes, well, all of us, right? It's a little bit making us uncomfortable sometimes, but let's just start with that realization that not only change is going to continue happening, I think actually with all the technology advancements and with AI, it's going to happen even faster and it's going to impact organizations even more. So where I think we need to pay attention to as this is happening is to make sure that we're using AI and all of the technology advancements for the right purpose. So we want to make sure that we're not just using technology for the sake of technology, right? And what does that mean for the right purpose? That means that we don't just connect it to the right business value, but it's the right use case, that is prioritized, that is the right thing for the organization right now. So use it for the right purpose so that we make sure that we focus and we focus on execution. We don't want to just talk about it. We want to focus on execution and delivering, but focus on execution for the right things, the things that matter, hence connected back to the business value, the purpose, the right use case. And I would say also, as we're looking at these technology advancements and using them, let's just make sure that we're also doing this responsibly and ethically, especially with the latest advancements in AI. So does that answer your question, Ankita? Anything else that you wanted to touch in this space?
No, yes. But then when you mention that we have to use it in a right way with the right use cases and all, right? But that only comes with the strong data foundation, which we really need to have for these AI solutions to work effectively and companies taking out the right use of it and right benefits to it, right? So do you really think that in today's world, the companies are actually ready for these AI solutions when we see that data, very simple fact that the data preparation or gathering the data, right, organizing the data is not in place? Companies really think that we have the data, but they really do not have the data when we really have a close inspection to it. So they think that they have the data, but then they are not organized, they are not cleaned enough to actually see the right value out of it, to see the right output of it. It's a poor quality data probably. So what do you think that what strategies should companies inherit or should follow to have the right quality data in place?
So 100% agree with what you're saying. I don't think we're really that ready. Most organizations are not. And I want to give it a little bit more color, and then I'll start sharing my thoughts around the different strategies, right? I don't think we're ready. One, from the perspective what you spoke about and the quality of the data. Is it clean? Is it accurate? Is it of a high integrity? Is it relevant? Can I find it in a timely way? Is it the right data to feed, the use case that we're using? So we're not ready from that perspective. But when I think about this holistically as a business technology leader as well, you got different organizations out there, right? We're also not ready in terms of the different processes, because it's not just the data itself, the bits and the bytes, right? We're not ready in terms of data within business context. And that's not ready, right? And also we're not ready to in terms of the processes around it, how we manage, how we maintain this data, and the new technologies. And I just want to say very quickly this: the newer, probably more startup type of organizations, they might be more tech savvy and know how to use the new tools and everything, but then they're lacking probably a little bit in terms of, well, how do I scale my business, or how do I manage everything around data in a way that it's stable and scalable for my organization? Then you have organizations that it might be better with the processes and how to manage this, but then there's a lot of pushback because a lot of things have happened in silos. And then you have the integrity of the data that it's bad for every organization, I think, right? So in terms of processes, so a couple of things to think about there. It's not like a one size fits all. But in terms of processes, I want to say that it starts with the basics. I typically say go back to the basics, and that meaning, for us to have better data, because AI does run on data, Well, okay, let's start with who's doing what. Do we have clear roles and responsibilities? What are the different operational processes? Who is going to be the designer, the tester, especially as we're putting all these new models in there? Do we actually test them? Are there feedback loops? So go back to the basics in terms of having a framework around operationally, how to manage this data, and even more basic, who does what, when, how do we work with each other, how we talk to each other, how do we make sure that we focus on the right thing and we have a common goal, right? Bring the business, the IT, the data science teams together to work together. So that back to the fundamentals, it's strategy number one for me. But then I would say, don't reinvent the wheel. We're talking about data. So there are a lot of best practices from data governance, from data governance and data management. These terms can mean different things to different people. So not to get too technical, but how do you do that? How do you get people to work together? What are the actual practical hands-on data management techniques and processes, right? There's a method to the madness how you do this thing, right? But also leverage from other frameworks like the security and privacy frameworks, right? Especially when it comes to AI. Because like we said, it's not just about doing it. We want to make sure that we focus on the right things that matter for the organization at this point in time and at the level of maturity every organization is at, and that we're doing it responsibly and ethically. And how do we do that? We learn from all of the best practices and the lessons and the frameworks out there, right? So leverage, go back to the foundational fundamentals, for managing everything. Leverage data governance, data management, data security and privacy frameworks like the NIST framework. Gartner has another one. Education, has another one. And as we're doing all of this, another strategy, and it's something that we underestimate, is not forget to bring people along and be proactively managing the organizational change. There's a lot of change. The processes might change. These new AI models that we're putting out there, especially generative, the newest kid of the block, right? As we do more with it and we integrate it into business, there is huge change that's happening in the organization. So, and we can go into the detail what that really means if we are to unpack it. But let's not forget that that also is part of the equation here, and making sure that we're focusing on, hey, bring people along, train them, explain them what's in it for them, right? What is this change mean for them? How does it impact? So that's a couple of thoughts to start with for the type of strategy where I would start, in managing what do we do with AI, what is this data strategy, what do we focus on, and how do we do it?
No, thank you, Dora.
Right.
Absolutely. So what I'm hearing is that you are insisting on going back to the basics for data quality, that before building very advanced artificial intelligence models, algorithms using generative AI, ensuring that data quality is, or the data basics, our foundations are tight. That is the most important part for all businesses.
I
There is
say
a
data,
corollary to
well,
that.
yeah, I say data quality, but I want to be clear. When I say back to the basics, I don't just mean data quality. I think also how we get to good data quality and integrity is how we go about it. So when I say back to the basics, it's really as foundational as management 101. Who does
Right.
what, when, and how do we work with each other? Because sometimes, even as we try to implement data quality, data governance, data architecture, different components of this whole data ecosystem here, we forget those fundamentals, and then it fails. And the reasons are because there is no clarity of who does what and how we work together. So I just wanted to highlight, right? But I agree with you, Sid. Everything around leveraging quality and management and governance frameworks, as well as the security and privacy. So don't start from scratch, leverage all of that, and they keep on evolving.
Correct. There is another corollary to that, like what I'm also sensing in the industry now. There is a data-driven decision-making culture, right? That people needs to be able to trust their data so that they can. So one big thing about adoption of artificial intelligence algorithms, as well as building solutions on top of it, is do you have trust on your current data landscape? Okay, that organization sometimes they want to jump directly into the artificial intelligence without necessarily making data-driven decision making today. Okay. Can you share some thoughts about how important do you think is a data-driven culture that needs to happen in the organization today before they start thinking about building AI? Because developing solutions is one aspect of it. You can make the most advanced predictive or prescriptive analytic solutions. But if people don't trust the data today, they are not going to trust a prediction model that says that, hey, your delivery date is so and so, or your forecasting is going to be this. And that investment that IT and management is doing in those aspects might not deliver the ROI that they expected it to.
100%, right? So I think the bigger underestimation, or we forget sometimes, is that, yeah, AI runs on data. So we got to have good data, right? Because otherwise it's not. But this is why I brought up OCM before, because you have to trust it and you have to, your point exactly, so you got to drive the adoption, right? So I think it's significant. And now how do you drive the adoption becomes the question, right? And this is where, again, what are those organizational change management techniques that we can use, right? This is when you work with people. You show, first of all, you work with them for them to understand what's in it for them. Why, for them to trust the data, they need to be part of the process. So if we, for example, create, roll out new models and we say, here, go use it. It's going to predict to you. It's going to predict what you're looking for. Of course, they're not going to trust it as much when it's a big black box, number one. But if you include these people as part of from the beginning and you bring both functional and IT and data people together, it's one team, right? To understand what is it that we're trying to solve for, how we're going to do it. So make them part of the process. They're going to trust it more, right? Because they're engaging and they're part of the process. They feel that they contribute. And along the way, they need to understand what's in it for them. Why should they be part of the process, right? That's why I'm saying go back to like organizational change management practice and techniques for how to do it. Yeah, so they need to be part of it.
Like the question was to understand how do you incorporate those users into who have not been on the data-driven journey so far,
Okay.
but with the advent of these new solutions, how do you build that confidence? So I think you answered it appropriately.
Well, and here's a couple more things, right? When I say engaging is one thing, but there's a couple more things to think about. While you're engaging and you're making it about the other people, that means that you're practicing things like what I call empathetic leadership, meaning you listen, you empathize, you listen. That means you're doing active listening. That means you're curious and you're asking questions because you're trying to understand what is the pain point for the people that you want them to trust the results of this model later, right? So it's all of those aspects of how do we work with people? How do we communicate the value? So this is one of those red flags, by the way. There's probably a lot of technical people on the call here. We're technical people when we work with data, with AI, with technology. And I think going forward, even more important, along with everything else, right? We've got to know our craft. But even with that, with more than anything else, and what I think is going to pay even bigger significance going forward is how well equipped we are to clearly communicate, articulate the value of the work that we're doing. So if we're trying to drive that change and we want our business community and stakeholders to trust the results of what we're building, not only do we have to engage them, we need to make them believe that there's something in it for them, that it's going to solve their problem. For us to make sure that it solves their problem, right, we need to actually work with them, make them part of the solution, of the process to the final solution, which means you ask questions, which means something that I've done, for example, being in a global role. Like I said, I got a lot of people coming to me from all different directions. The onus is on me to understand more about the function where they're coming from. And if I'm talking to someone coming from marketing versus finance versus operations, manufacturing, I'm trying to learn a little bit more about where they're coming from, the function, their day-to-day, because then I can actually pick up a lot better when they're talking and read between the lines what exactly is their problem, which means also that I can ask better questions. So when I do that, it becomes an engaging conversation and they're part of this. So when we end through the process delivering something, it's not, we've already done a lot of work in terms of driving adoption of that outcome, that product that we're delivering. So it goes right back to your original question, right? And this is like the method to the madness with different ways of how you drive change. And when I said before empathetic leadership, it has all of these components of, what people think as servant leadership and active listening and engaging, right, with the stakeholders that could be consuming our products. But the same thing now, try also applying that with people that perhaps are building it, right? Our teams. How do we keep our teams engaged to want to work on something if they have, let's say, the technical skills or the business analysis skills or the, being a translator between the functional, the technical side type of skills? How do we keep them engaged? And that goes back again to that empathetic leadership bit I brought up before, because then you work with your people to make sure that they also feel part of the process and they're engaged and they feel understood and seen and heard and valued. And when we combine that with having real clear goals that are consistent amongst the data, the technology, the business people, that's where success comes. That's how we're going to get out of the AI implementation the right outcome for the right purpose, as I was saying earlier, the right use case that makes sense for where we are right now in the maturity in the organization that we are, right? It's not one person. It's not just the technical skills. It's really just bringing all of that together. There's a little bit of a science and an art to it too, which brings me back to another aspect, which is making sure that as we're doing all of this, we really have the right people in the right roles to make it all gel together.
Absolutely. Brilliant.
Right. So Dora, when we say that to inherit this data-driven culture, right, nowadays for better decision making and for better business growth, so it is very vital to make that data accessible to the users and that they trust that data, right? So what do you think, like how Gen AI will have an impact on industries nowadays, and what capabilities you expect to see coming soon in future?
Look, I mean, this is all not hypothetical, but I'm speculating right now, right? Because I don't know that any one of us knows exactly what's going to happen, right? I think, like I said earlier, not only are we going to see AI and generative AI being used, it's going at a much faster rate. So there are different applications for this. I think we're going to see more conversational AI, chatbots, right? That will be more personalized, to people. I think we're going to see it, and hopefully we do, augment more human capabilities, right? Probably in drug discovery, in fraud detection, and, detecting diseases earlier, right? I'll give you an example of a practical application that's happening today that, kind of like gives an idea of the possibilities out there. So I work for Stryker, medical technology leader, wonderful organization. One of our products is the Mako. It's robotic arm assisted surgery. Now, that's been around for a while, but it has been using AI. And that's the other thing, by the way. There's a lot of hype around AI, especially with generative AI, but then you have your traditional machine learning. That's part of AI as well, right? It's not just the generative AI. So if I bring the example of Mako, just for, the inspiration to go out there, when surgeons, for example, this is for knee surgery, when surgeons put medical device, right, inside a person's body, in the knee, you get different sizes of those medical devices of the knees, and you get the size that it's the most fit to that person's, but it's very personalized, that person's body. And what happens is, for that to really fit good there, the surgeons have to actually grind away and cut away bone, right? By using Mako robotic arm assisted surgery, for example, those personalized dimensions of that person's knee, right? It's right in the machine learning, the AI program, right? And what happens is that guy's a surgeon. So if they go off where it has been measured, it stops. Mako, actually, the robotic arm, stops them for cutting so they don't cut too much of the bone. So this is just one application. Or I've seen applications, that's another product of ours, for example, where using computer vision, right? It looks using computer vision, the blood on the sponge, as they call it, and it can then put out an alert and say, hey, that's way too much blood for the type of surgeries you do. Take another look. So going forward, I mean, who knows, but I would hope that we can find drugs faster, that we can cure disease, that we can be better at fraud detection, and all the security teams, are using it, and hopefully we can get a lot better with that. I think more personalized, not only with the personalized recommendations that we get, for example, on Amazon and Netflix. I think we'll see more of that. And I think it's going to be integrated in our day-to-day work and personal lives, probably in ways that we don't even think about right now. One thing is for sure, it's happening fast. In my mind, it's for sure. It's happening fast, and it's going to continue to happen.
Absolutely. I think, Dora, you rightly mentioned the use cases can be enormous, especially how I see AI use cases to come up is the main capability of AI is to be able to take decisions or make recommendations based on ambiguous situation, based on millions and millions of data points. So our comprehension may not be that high, but artificial intelligence is able to look at billions of lines of data and make a judgment. Like if I just put for example, even diagnosis, like for a patient, what a GP does today, general practitioner, that they have seen if we feed data across all type of demographics, all type of countries, ethnicity, race across the globe into a central AI, they will be able to translate and interpret each individual for the particular Indian male in the age group of 40 to 45 from this part of the country living in this type of temperature. This is the common scenario. Their interpretation of that data could be much more specific. And it's up to us, our imagination, how we can come up with solutions. And that's a message that which I'm understanding from your talk, is every business user has to think that ocean is very vast. We have to figure out which part of which direction do we have to sail through. And if we find
that
the right
goes
use
back.
case.
Yeah, sorry, Sid, go ahead.
Yeah, no, if we find the right use case and find the right partner, we may be able to configure or leverage the artificial intelligence platforms to build the solutions that we actually need.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead, you were
absolutely.
saying
This
something.
is what, yeah, that's why you're highlighting exactly, what I think it's important to keep on hammering that point, because sometimes we just get too enamored with the technology itself. And then we forget that the point of this whole technology is to make our lives better, to make our organizations healthier, right? To thrive and to help the customers, the patients. So it goes back to what is the right use case for this point in time, right? And you do that by really all the things that we talked about, looking at this, prioritizing, looking at, the impact. Any regulatory, impact, any risk mitigation? Are there any regulations that we need to take care of? Is this the right area for us to focus for, streamline, cut out costs, for example, come up with new revenue streams, right? Do we have the skills at this point in time for us to do it? Maybe all of these things are right, but we don't have, we have some other gap, right? The one thing also that's helping us, and I think it's important for us to say that, first of all, AI is not new, right? We're like in an AI boost, like an AI spring kind of a era right now. But I mean, the very first AI program was back in 1960s with Eliza, right? But the technology, like we did not have the GPU chips back then that we have now. So we have that going for us right now. And we are at the point as well, which is another reason why I think it's going to keep on happening exponentially, that AI is being used to build AI and to integrate in our processes. So that's running a lot faster. And when you actually use this technology to, like you were saying earlier, Sid, right? Kind of like think, oh, okay, here's some use applications, or when I'm connecting the dots and I'm putting all these different systems together so that end to end, we have, something that can work for us. It can predict and it can actually take action, right? And maybe we just verify. I mean, we're not quite there yet, but I mean, those are the possibilities. And with AI, being able to help us do that, brainstorm, innovate, automate, all of these things. Because when I think about it, actually, I think in terms of how does it help me to innovate? How does it help me to automate? How does it help me to personalize things? Those are the kinds of things that I'm thinking about.
Wow, no, that's a very handy guidance for all the listeners of this webinar. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Right. So, Dora, when you talked about like customized and personified bots, right? So it is like very important to uh, balance AI with human intuitions and creativity. So how do you how do you do that in your organization, and what are recommendations of the industry leaders?
So I think, with AI being an opportunity, but it's also brings a lot of responsibility with it. And I think part of that, it's also to make sure, we've talked about data literacy in the past. I think there's the whole AI literacy, if you may, basically meaning, hey, I think education and training, it's part of this. And part of that type of training is raising awareness what this is. And part of that awareness to also is, and that's what I'm trying to get to, is AI is not here to replace us. And it's not here, and it shouldn't, right? And I think this is one of those gotchas as well, where we have to be very careful that it does not replace critical reasoning and thinking, right? Instead, how we use it to augment our human capabilities. So to your question, Ankita, how to do that? I think there's a lot of raising awareness and education that needs to happen. I mean, early on, I think we've all probably heard of the examples of, people like letting the secrets out, right? Or using hallucinations as facts, right? So we need to educate, and we need to also make sure that people understand, hey, this is another tool. It's not a one size fits all. It is not the magic box that will just solve everything. And in my opinion, you need the human in the loop, and we need to be careful that, again, we use it to augment our capabilities, not do all of the thinking for us.
Right. But I think, I mean, most of like the people are actually using it as a replacement of their human capabilities. So I think we should. So I mean, we need to know that how do we ensure that, as you rightly mentioned, AI enhances the human capabilities and not replace the human capabilities. So I mean, also how what should the organizations do, to make a collaborative environment for AI tools to support human capabilities and advance them and make it better? What do
So
the
it's
organization should, right?
Yeah, so I mean, so it starts with, again, raising awareness of what it can do. And I love you use the word enhances. You're absolutely right. And by the way, I don't want to give the wrong impression here. We want to use these tools for the right use cases. They do enhance our day-to-day work, what we do. We're talking about productivity gains, right? So for example, I use these tools when I say, oh, wow, there is like 5 threads in this email from last night. Just recap it for me and give me the key takeaways. I mean, you can use it to enhance productivity. But for example, not only start with the fundamentals, what it is, but bring people together. Maybe you have a hackathon, right? Where you bring people, from the business side, the technical side, the data side to say, hey, here's what we can do with these tools. What are the right things that we need? And then people coming together, not only learning as academically what you can do, right? But in practice, and hackathons is one of those ways. And taking workshops, but practically what can we do? Maybe it's a POC, maybe it's a hackathon. Get people together to start using it so that they can understand it. Complement the learning about this with the experiential learning about this. And obviously, depending on the role, different people will go deeper in it than others. I'm interested. Have
And
you
Ankita, what
seen? I know, Seda, you guys work with many different people in the industry as well. Have
yep,
you seen anything else? Back to let's learn from each other.
yes,
Any
yes.
other, any other suggestions that you have on this for
Yeah,
our
no, I was
audience
about
here?
to share that. Can you hear me? Yeah, I
Yes.
wanted to share the
Yes,
same
yes.
example that a couple of customers have started with guardrails for using these AIs. That rather than
Oh,
pushing it under the carpet, leaving it, not talking about it, let employees use it on their own because then you can't control it. But bringing guardrails, encouraging the usage or utilization of these AI tools, uh, preparing a recommendation that out of all of these LLM models that are available on the market today, here are the 2 or 3 that we recommend that we should use, and then flagging their output in every communication that this response or this was generated using this software at that point in time, so that they know that what output is being constructed, so people feel comfortable that this is not a judgment against you, that you are using creating content using ChatGPT or creating content using Gemini, because many people feel slightly hesitant in sharing that this content was created. But if you create a culture that was, we expect you to use these tools and come prepared. The only caveat being that when you are using these tools, to do fact check, make sure that this content has been verified through your eyes before it gets created. Like, it is not a competition of writing the best email possible, right? The competition is to make sure that the business values gets delivered. If you want to use AI to write your document or to structure your thoughts, please feel free, but make sure you review it and improve your time from 5 hours to 1 hour probably in doing that. So that guardrail I've seen another customer creating an idea center. Actually, they created a whole contest very similar to hackathon that you are talking about, that they created a portal of idea center where all employees can start inputting their ideas on how AI is going to improve their life or in their business, or across groups. And that group, they collected, I think, 3,000 plus ideas how artificial intelligence can be used. And now a committee is curating through all those 3,000 ideas, segmenting and deciding these are the 10 priorities that we want to work on immediately, because that can
I
deliver the
love
best
it.
value.
I love it. And you know, I'm glad, thank you so much. I'm glad that you brought up the guardrails because I think that's the very first thing, right? And guardrails and education for me kind of like go hand in hand to avoid the letting out proprietary information, right? And basing decisions on inaccurate information. Yeah, I love the idea, the portal about ideas. I've also seen workshops where you bring, you know, key stakeholders together and just have like day-long workshops. But I think your idea about actually having a portal takes it even a step further, and I love that. Great.
There are quite a few business users who have never necessarily become a tech user at all. Okay, do you have any advice of how those non-techie business users can get started about learning about AI and how it is impacting their job? And rather than being hesitant, becoming an active user and proponent, if possible, even of artificial intelligence. So as a business user with no tech background, I know there are mirage of courses available online, but many of them quickly start into very deep technical discussions. But how do an average business user, because there are many people on our webinar today who may not have a very strong tech background, what is your advice for them to adapt and learn more about AI?
So I actually see more courses and a lot of them are around the technical aspects of this, right? Talking about vector databases, talking about RAG techniques, right? About how to build, how to do things. But I am starting to see some courses out there that talk about, hey, AI in business terms, and what does this mean? We're talking about the implications of AI, right? So I think use some of these tools. You can actually just ask ChatGPT, it's free. What should I know? Tell me in plain business terms, what is Gen AI? What are the implications? How can I use it? Give me some ideas, that I can enhance my productivity, or what does this mean to me, as an employee or as a person, right? So use these tools to help educate. The other thing is, if you see somebody that seems that they know, or they're staying up, or first of all, every day we keep on learning, right? I don't know if there's anyone that knows everything about everything. Every day we keep on learning, and the technology and the regulations and how to implement it keeps evolving, and we're learning. But if you see someone as a business person, right? If you see someone out there, let's say on LinkedIn, there's so much happening on LinkedIn or in other sites as well. So reach out to them, work with them, right? It could be working obviously with partners that are very, they've done it, they've done deployment, so they have the experience and the expertise, and they can teach not only the technical, but in simple business terms. You could actually find people I go back to LinkedIn because I use it a lot. So reach out to those people. There are books, there are courses. I would also say, perhaps see what's happening where you are regionally. Are there any kind of meetups, any kind of organizations where they get together? There's so much webinars happening, not only virtual, but sometimes they're just meetings and meetups in regional cities where they talk about, let's explain what this AI is all about, right? Not everything will be a perfect fit, but depending on what you said, if you said more on the functional side and you want to understand it more from the functional side, great, go for that. I think it starts with just being intentional. And then once you start, you get to where, to the right people, that the way that they talk about it or the way they implement it can work with you makes sense to you, right? Because everybody has a different style. and sign up for
Absolutely.
things like that. Hopefully our audience here is learning a couple of things today, so sign up for webinars like this and get to understand a little bit more. I think the learning
Awesome.
tool
Awesome.
is continuous. It's not a once and done. Talk about it, even if you don't know anything
Absolutely.
about it.
Love it. So the message that I'm hearing is the only way to learn about any topic and not just AI is to go out there and get your hands dirty. Like if you start talking to people about it, it's that magic is eureka moment is not going to happen sitting in your couch. You have to take active effort to understand about it. Waiting for your IT organization to come and give you a training session on this may not necessarily happen. This is a technology that everyone is exploring. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So I want to give you this example because I think it just highlights a couple of things. But what I just said, just talk with other people because we learn from each other. So let's say there are people that reached out to me and we've been talking, and then I gave a very personal example that happened to me that was talking about hallucinations, right? So I came across this one blog one day that had an article, a blog, and it was about me and a couple of other things, right? So this is an actual modern data platform. It's an actual business. They have clients. They sell their product. It's a modern data analytics product. It's using AI and LLM, and they're talking about it. This is their website. They have a blog. So I come across it because it had my name in it. So I started reading the blog. I had no idea this company had a blog that was referring to me. Now it was all positive, but let me tell you, about 60% of that blog was hallucinations. What he did was had listened to one of the podcasts that I had, and he had summarized some things, but then he had things in there like, Dora is great. Dora used her expertise and our product and totally turned around this retailer that was about to go bankrupt and totally saved the day. Dora has a PhD from MIT in artificial intelligence. Her mentor is Joe Schmo, also a world-renowned MIT professor. Here's Dora's memorable quote, and there's a whole paragraph now in this blog, my memorable quote, which was a sentence from something that I said in the podcast in this context, a sentence I said in a different context in that same podcast. They took it together, flipped one word, made a new quote, and there was a whole paragraph talking about my memorable quote. Okay, hopefully, again, if we met, either you reached out online or we met over the water cooler, whatever, and I told you the story, I think it's just an example of how now you understand hallucinations, right? Because that was all hallucinations. So don't believe everything that these AI models, generative AI models, give you back. That's why, in terms of as a business and how we manage them, human in the loop is absolutely important. Take what comes back, use it to generate ideas, use it to brainstorm. If it's for other types of process and other results, again, validate it, which goes back to making sure that we have the right data. Even I think at some point, say, you and I were talking about synthetic data, for example. Well, make sure that that synthetic data, it's a representative sample that starts with good validated original data with good veracity. So back to how good is the data, but also make sure you have the right processes, controls, and checks. That includes having the human in the loop. What does that mean? Having the testers, having the designers, having the right people to teach the AI for whatever it's trying to do. Otherwise, stories like that will keep on happening. Now, in this case, this company, I reached out, I spoke to the CEO, I spoke to the CTO. They said they didn't know, they took it down.
That brings to the famous quote that goes around the internet right now. People are concerned AI is going to take their job, but AI is not at that level where it's going to take their job. But human that uses AI effectively can definitely take their job. So learning how to use AI effectively. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, sorry, Sid. I didn't mean to cut you off, but you're absolutely right. Jensen Huang of NVIDIA, the CEO of NVIDIA, was the last person that I heard say that. But a lot of people have said that. I don't know where it originated, but it is such a good, it's a great perspective to put it, right? Which, and Kid, I would say that brings us back to your very original question about all of these things and all this changing. You're right. I've seen personally, and all of us, right? So many technologies come and go. AI and generative AI and all of the technology problems. So here's, if I were to predict something, I would say the problems that we have today with the technology, we will figure it out. We will figure it out. There were different technologies at a different time. The technology part, it's hard, but it's not as hard as actually making sure that we have the right guardrails and the people coming to work together and focusing on the right things. Yeah, the change is gonna continue and we need to embrace it. Otherwise, then our jobs will be at risk. But if we learn how to use these to our advantage and to the advantage of the organization, that is actually a differentiator, and it bolsters, somebody's career, not taking it away. But it takes word, right, guys? It takes word. It takes actually embracing it and being part of it, and learning the new things and how you want to use it. It's a choice.
Right.
Absolutely. No, thank you, Dora, so much for this valuable insights. Again, I know we are running short on time, so I wanted to pass it on to Bhavya and Fazan in case they feel there is any audience questions that we have time to field.
Yes, we have two questions in the chat box. So one question is from Jaideep. For organizations that don't have a strong understanding of its end-to-end process portfolio capability, uh, Map, do you have an approach you suggest for organizations to capture this and stay on top of it?
Okay. So yes, there are what I call method to the madness always. There are frameworks out there, right? For end-to-end. So I've done a lot of enterprise architecture and enterprise data architecture. There are ways how to do it. I don't know that it's anything that you can just explain in 30 seconds because there's whole, study and frameworks and people behind it. But I think I would start with like making sure that you got the right people driving for that. The people, there is the one part is how you do it. And you can find people that know how to do it, people that can help you how to do it, and you can find best practices. But before you even get there, the key part is making sure that you have the right leader actually that can communicate the value to get the funding, the investment, and the backing to go ahead and do it. So for end-to-end, absolutely. And by the way, thank you for that question, because this is very near and dear to my heart. I am always speaking about end-to-end understanding the business process of the business context. Because when we don't, what we don't understand is there's always downstream some kind of an impact, always. And we usually go, silo ways solving things. So the answer to the question is make sure that you have the right people that can communicate and articulate the value so that you can get the funding, and then you can actually get the right help. There are frameworks, there are ways of doing it, and there are people that can help. For me, a lot of that comes from, the enterprise architecture, enterprise business, enterprise data, and enterprise solution architectural world, and then obviously the implementation of it.
Thank you, Dora. There is one more question from Prithviraj. How do you see AI transforming the future of work, and what skills will be most valuable in an AI-driven economy?
I think we touched on a couple of these things.
Yes.
The skills that I think will be, right, and we talked about some of the use cases and others that we probably can't even think about, right? I do think it's going to integrate in our lives even more. And by the way, just over the weekend, I watched Atlas, the new movie. So there is some imagination about how AI is going to get incorporated in our lives. So, sometimes these movies, I don't know if any of that is going to come true or not. But in terms of skills, it's back to what we were saying, people that know how to use it. So for me, actually, it's going to be less about the technical skills. There was a time where knowing how to write code was great. And these days you just ask ChatGPT, hey, I want to do that. Give me the code in R, in Python, in whatever it is. Now, let me give you an example here. I was reading I think it was a Computer Sharing Information Week, one of those articles, right? I was reading an article about a month ago. And what I read is that the acceptance rate for that, when actually we're using generative AI to tell us, here's the code routine for how to write code, it's about 30 to 40%. Not because the code itself is wrong, but because the prompt either did not communicate it specifically enough or the AI did not understand it good enough, right? So back to your question, Pavan, I think one of the better skills would be how do you use it and how do you communicate? Communication, talking about how all of this is driving value, I think will be one of the most sought out skills going forward. Because not only is AI is going to be used to write AI, and code and everything, it's going to go back to the human factor and how do I help the organization understand what this is and how to use it. And that's the kind of skill that I think we need to keep on investing. Yes, the technical skills, but as that changing, don't forget to bolster communication and working with people and driving, influencing people for the things that matter to you. Sid, you wanted to say something?
Absolutely. So if I understand you correctly, like developing that judgment of where AI can be trusted, where it cannot be trusted, can it be used for, that potential is a key skill that people needs to bolster to succeed in the next coming years.
Understanding
what AI can
it?
be used for.
Yes. Actually, you said something different, which I couldn't agree more. Understanding that skill, it's important. And then communicating about it. Because you can understand it. You can even be able to just do it yourself, build it soup to nuts. But it's not enough to know to do great technical work or to do any kind of work. It's not enough. You need to be able to help others understand why they should trust you and why should they fund you, because nothing happens without funding, without the budget, the money to go ahead and do that project. So understand it. It's key. Knowing how to articulate and get others to understand what you understand and give you the money that go ahead and the support that you need to make it happen. It's actually a little bit of a different skill. I think both those skills are key. We tend to understand that, okay, know how to do these things, it's one, and we all gravitate towards the technical, but understanding where and why and how to communicate it are also very important going forward.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so
Awesome.
much, Dora. I guess only these many
I have
questions.
one funny question.
Okay,
So
okay.
to Dora, Dora, have you come across any, or maybe what innovative, weird, or funny job roles you have come across with respect to AI? Because we saw somebody calling themselves AI parent.
AI
on LinkedIn.
parent?
Yes. So have you come across some weird job roles with respect to AI?
I haven't yet. I mean, I've seen a lot of AI engineer, AI strategist, right? Then you have your C-level roles around chief digital and AI officers or data and AI officers. I haven't seen, this was AI parent?
Parent.
Okay, I'm not sure what that means, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some of that as
So
well.
now she has a
right?
good answer. Now Dora has a good answer to this question for the next
I
time.
don't
Somebody
understand
asks.
that, but I don't
AI
understand what an
parent.
AI parent does. Okay.
Maybe they know everything. They are the creators. What else?
We'll have to
I
probably
don't
talk to
know.
that individual. But thank you so much again, Dora, for taking time to meet with us. We are at the top of the hour. This has been a very, very informative session for all of us and for all the listeners. This podcast or webinar is going to be posted on LinkedIn as well in the recording. So many other individuals who are not able to join us today will be able to listen in. And thank you again so much from the bottom of our heart for taking time to educate so many people about artificial intelligence, about data analytics and its immense potential. This is a public service you are performing on top of your existing work at Striker that is also market leading. So thank you so much again for taking time. Really appreciate it.
This was a blast. No, I'm very grateful. Thank you so much. Thank you for the questions for the audience. Feel free to reach out. I'm active on LinkedIn. Anybody that wants to reach out and continue the conversation, go deeper, feel free to do that. And yeah, I wish everybody a great day and keep staying curious and learning. Hashtag never stop learning, right, Sid?
Right.
And
Absolutely.
Ankita, right,
Hashtag
about
never
it?
stop learning. Thank you,
Thanks a lot,
everybody.
everybody. I
Thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much, Dora, for your time. Thank you. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
You
Bye.
too. Bye-bye.